I don't know how he got permission to do. I guess it was a subscription thing. I don't know if he shared it with the labels. I'm not sure how it worked for the legality of it, but he decided he wanted to start a record company now too. This guy, his name was Mike Wilkinson.
Yep.
He was an ad executive. He made a lot. He was a gay ad executive, made a lot of money in advertising. He was in charge of the Mooney aircraft. It's like Cessna, a small personal aircraft that people would buy, like, little propeller planes. And he did the advertising for that. And he worked, on Madison and 40th Street. And I'd go to his office and help him set up Import 12, which was the label he started. And I set up the distribution before I set up Tommy Boy, because I didn't know what I was doing. And I wanted to learn at somebody else's expense.
Can I project everyone? Import 12 inches where we had Man Parish, Hip Hop Bebop. That's part of what he's talking about. So he's talking about it from, right. He's talking about it from when he's working with the owner of this Disconet Import 12. Sorry, go ahead.
Correct. So Mike Wilkinson, So Mike Wilkinson, good friend. And I said, let me come up and I'll help you set the label up. And I just called people. I called the distributors. I set up distribution deals. I figured out what the amount was. I learned everything about how you get paid or don't get paid, and pressing, where do you press records and all that stuff. So I could do it myself when I'm ready to go. I knew I was going to be ready to go. And then in 1980, when I went to hear Afrika Bambatta spin in the Bronx, and I see him doing that, playing the Monkees mixed with James Brown, playing Kraftwerk mixed with George Clinton. I'm saying, this is a total mind fuck. I said, do you want to make a record that sounds like this? I didn't have a record company yet. And he said, yes. So we went into the studio and made an 8-track demo in Mamaroneck, New York.
Who was involved? Who was production part of that?
Just he and I, and a guy that worked at Sam Ash in White Plains, who was the synth guy, came in and with some synthesizers and stuff and played some parts. And my idea was to use 5 or 6 of the hooks from songs that Bambatta were big for Bambatta. They don't like Kraftwerk, like, what was the other one? Babe Ruth, the Mexican.
Yep.
These were like classic breakbeat records that were selling in that store and that Bambatta actually made famous, most of them. I forget what some of the other ones were. They didn't all end up in the final thing, but we made it. We made a tape, a cassette, and I played it for Arthur Baker. And he said, I love that. I said, so you want to produce it? You can produce it with me, And Mike Wilkinson said, oh yeah, I'm doing this song called Vina Cava on Import 12 with this guy named John Roby. Why don't you use him? He's great at synthesizers. So Arthur and John Roby went into the studio, and we all went in and to make this record that was going to be called Planet Rock with Afrika Bambatta. And I'd already released a record with Bambatta with Bambatta the year before called Jazzy Sensation that came out in 81. It was
the first 1 or 2 records saw Jazzy Sensation. Were they pseudo hits at any level, or just
Jazzy Sensation earned me enough money to pay my parents back. My parents lent me another $5,000 to start Tommy Boy. 2 years later.
Parents, man.
I know. Talking about throwing bad money after good, that.
That's what I was going to ask you. She's giving you more money. They're giving you more money. What are you doing now, Tom?
After that first record, I paid them back. So that one did 35,000 12 inches. And 12 inches were $398 at the time, but still pretty profitable. I didn't have to make an album. It was really one song, 2 sides though. Arthur's wife sang on the other side.
Tina B at the time?
Tina B, yeah.
Yeah.
The Cryptic Crew was the group that did the B-side. And at the time, hip-hop, well, it wasn't called hip-hop, but rap records didn't get played on radio. Black radio had a no rap policy across the country, except for very few places. So we wanted to expand our chances. We did it on Planet Rock too, and we put, we put a version without a rap on the other side that had sort of singing on it, so it could get played where dance music got played. I was not a hip hop guy yet because hip hop hadn't been invented. It was This was just dance music, a different kind of dance music.
Right, slower.
In order for me to get DJs to play it, that's how they had to do it.
The Kraftwerk replay that John Robbie did in Planet Rock, did you have to clear that right away, or was that something that you did later on? How did that work in those days? Because this is all new, this sampling and not even replay or whatever at that time.
Yeah, I had to clear the publishing because I didn't do any sampling. I mean, it was all replay, and I had to give up all the publishing on Jazzy Sensation to the Gwen McRae version. But today, I probably wouldn't have done that. I would have been able to negotiate a split of some sort.
Right, but it's early days. So what about now, like with Planet Rock, with da 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 da, with the Kraftwerk part?
Well, I thought it was an interpolation. I didn't think it was really, there's a lot of stuff in there, like there's a lot of things in there that are reminiscent of other things that Bambatta was playing, and this was reminiscent of Kraftwerk. It wasn't an open and shut case. It certainly wasn't a sample. It was all played.
Oh yeah, no, we know that.
And it was played. It was differentiated, but it had similar things in it. So Kraftwerk came after us.
They did
with their publishing company. Their publishing company has the ironic name of No Hassle Music. They gave us quite a hassle, and we ended up having to settle. Now, Arthur had the publishing. Tommy Boy didn't have the publishing on that, but we didn't want the record to get stopped. So all of that happened. It was really, it was pretty exciting. But, if you go back to Jazzy Sensation, yeah, it was a hit. I noticed that Simon Harris is online here, and he talked about how big it was there. It was big in France as well. There was a significant DJ in France who his DJ name was DJ TB 821, which was the 1982 remix catalog number of Jazzy Sensation. So he took that as his DJ name.
Funny you mentioned that catalog. Now, somebody sent me a private message this week about that. Why did you start at the 800s with the catalog numbers?
1981. 81 first record. 81 second record.
Nobody knows that. That's why they want to make sure.
TB 811 was Cotton Candy, Having Fun. TB 812, the second record, was Jazzy Sensation. And that came out late in the year. So then TB 821 was the remix, the Shep Pettibone remix of Jazzy Sensation. And then, it went on from there.
Planet Rock becomes a massive hit. How does your life change and record label change at that point?
I can hire more people. I can, expand the company a little bit more. I can sign more stuff, I guess. At the time, I think Monica Lynch was the only employee. She was working mainly with the newsletter. And so it was myself and her, and then some part-time people that came in to do other things. And then as we got more money, we were able to hire more people and expand the business.
Okay. And then this is the other thing I'm thinking about. You've created a whole street thing that the Fun House is starting to play these records. Okay. Playing at your own risk, Soul Sonic Force, all that stuff starting to hit the streets, crossing into radio too. How does that change everything? Because you went from street credibility to now commercial level.
Okay, well, we're leaving out a very important part in the timeline here, which make me think of it really. Tommy Boy starts first record mid-1981, first releases. I'm doing the stuff with Mike Wilkinson the year before, and I released a record on Tryon Park Records. I paid for it. I released it. There was another guy who had a label called Tryon Park Records. I used his name and logo and put the record out on that because in case I wouldn't be successful, which I wasn't, I didn't want it to hurt me. It was like a test run before I started Tommy Boy. It was called Let's Vote by Eric Nuri, who went on to be an A&R guy at Epic or Columbia. Harvard kid, won a Black Voters Registration theme song, 1981. Before I released the first Tommy Boy record, very beginning of 1981. 1980, I'm going to see Bambatta in the Bronx. But also 1980, this is when the Billboard Disco Forum starts moving to 2 episodes a year. So we said, you know what? We think that the Disco Forum sucks. They're ignoring everything new that's happening, and they're only talking to the same people over and over again. Let's invite and give a voice to people who aren't getting heard, people from other places and other cultures, different genres of music, and not just disco. Bill Wardlow was the guy at Billboard who sort of made this definition of disco. Had to be 4 on the floor. It had to sound like Village People or it wasn't disco, and so to me, that wasn't what we thought. So I got together with Mark Josephson, who had Rockpool, and we started the we started the New Music Seminar in 1980, and it went parallel. We ran it exactly the same time as the Disco Forum was happening at the Hilton. We were a block away. It was just a 1-day conference, $25, $29 to go. And it was at the SIR rehearsal studios in 1980, wow. Right? And it wasn't a moneymaker. It lost money, but it was a chance to, and we promoted it in Rockpool and Dance Music Report. So we had a pretty good turnout, and we had good people on panels talking about things that they would never talk about a block away. And people loved it. They got excited. They got turned on. And the next year we expanded it and did it in a nightclub called Private's, a nightclub on 85th Street and 3rd or Lex 3rd, I think. And that was when we had our first, in 1981, we had our first spinning exhibition where we had Jeff Breutman, who was working for Dance Music Report at the time, given demonstration of how DJs spin records and do overlays and all the things that DJs were doing in 1981. And then we had WizKid do quick cutting and show how people were cutting records in the hip hop world and what was happening there. And he did like crazy stuff. And the room was packed shoulder to shoulder. There must have been 150 people in their room. And, Jeff Breutman was great, fine and everything. But when they heard WizKid spin, they just started to scream. It was like they had never seen anything like it. And right. There was people already coming in from England this year by 1981. So in 1982, we expanded and went to the Sheraton and started the DJ battle for world supremacy. And then the year after that, we started to add the MCs battles as well. So the New Music Seminar is the place where everything cross-pollinated. And we put that all together and we promoted it to all of the readers of Dance Music Report and Rockpool and word of mouth through our team. And we took ads, we did trades with all the other publications to make it bigger and bigger. And really there we treated black music, white music, gay, straight, disco, all was one thing, all was cool. Everybody was accepted in the party. It was really great.
And it is true, everyone, because I learned a lot in those days before pre-internet, pre-everything. You used to get your Dance Music Report and you'd be seeing a spotlight piece on a DJ or a spotlight piece on Richard Long or whatever, Alex Rosa. It could have been anyone but they made things aware that you never had any chance of really, there was no library to go run to and go look at stuff. This was the librarian in a sense. Now, Tony Prince with DMC and all that, their model sounds like comes after your model.
Yeah. It did come after, and he came to the New Music Seminar, and he used to advertise and take a booth and sell his things. But yes, his battles came after.
Everyone.
Yeah, but also our model for a conference influenced the origins, of Winter Music Conference, of CMJ.
Correct.
College Media Journal had a big conference in New York, and most important, South by Southwest. They say it on the record. They came to the New Music Seminar. They invited us to do New Music Seminar South. Mark Josephson didn't want to do it in Austin, and it was going to be tied in with their newspaper there. And the newspaper in Austin used to take a booth at the New Music Seminar. And they went back and said, let's do our own. And the rest is history there. So the New Music Seminar was a groundbreaking concept that was a hit record. It just exploded like wildfire, and everybody... Still today, if you go to any conference in the music industry, it's modeled after the original New Music Seminar. Anybody who went during the 80s to the New Music Seminar, they'll never forget it. It was incredible. You meet people from all over the world. There was interesting people doing different things. People got, met people, started businesses with them, met future wives or husbands there. Everything happened there. It was just, people said, let's go into something with an open mind and meet people and learn things. And they did. I mean, I tried to do it again. I did it again in 2009 through 2014. And I have to say, it's disappointing. I went to the Mondo conference in Brooklyn last month, and it's just hard. People in this age think they can get all their information from Instagram and YouTube, and that personal meeting people isn't important. And I think it's really sad. I think there's so much to be gained from the intermingling of people face to face that can't happen online. It can't happen with Zoom. It's not the same.
I know, it sucks.
And also, like, there was more sex, which is really more difficult.
Yeah, well, that was a lot. Yeah, that was the commiserating of meeting everybody and hanging out. And
I always felt that's why the British came.
It's the truth. You heard it, the truth from Tommy himself. You created a great business model, and it holds its test even to today.
Yeah, we didn't create it as a business model, though. We created it as a solution to a problem.
A business model for everyone else to copy.
Having a newsletter, we could see all of dance music, DJs, record stores, radio stations, record pools. We talked to all of them. Yeah, Jackie McCloy would report from, LID DJ, the Long Island DJ
I was in Short Shot Record Pool. Bobby Davis would report to you guys.
Bobby Evil Davis.
VIP Appizzaro.
Yeah, we had so many. And
Weinstein
she was the one who was the only one who really didn't want to report. But all of the others, like, what was the there was one even in Harlem.
Bill Ricketts Record Pool in Jersey. Right.
Yep. And there's one in Pittsburgh, Brian Harkins. And I talked to all those guys. So they would, if anything was happening, I knew about it. I learned so much, and I knew what was happening. So I felt comfortable releasing music because I knew where it would go, if it would go, and I could find out quick if it would go, and I could run ads for free in the publication. And, I knew what we had to do. Simon Harris is mentioning the revolving bar at the Marriott. They had this rotating bar that would go around. We used to call it the vomitorium or the rotovom.
Yes.
Because if you sat there for an hour, you'd go all the way around 360 degrees.
But here's the thing now. As Tommy Boy 81, 82, are you still involved with the DMR, or did you hand that off to them?
No. That stopped decades ago. But I have all of the published issues. I have copies of every issue, and I've digitized them, so I can as searchable PDFs only in the last year and a half. So I can now find anything we wrote about, because it's a compendium of information about that era of the 80s and 90s. That was the most critical era to dance music, arguably, in history. And, we wrote about everything. So if I wanted to look up a word or a producer or a songwriter's name or whatever, a label, what I could find out every time it was ever mentioned in Dance Music Report and read about it, because I remember interviewing people like Kool Herc when I wanted to write about hip hop and what is hip hop in Dance Music Report, and, how it got its origins, and talking to Bambatta and talking to Kool Herc about the Bronx and how important it was. And really, people who played in white clubs don't really understand, because they have a different experience. The Black experience was totally different. The Latin experience was different. The gay experience was different. The gay clubs liked 130 beat per minute music. The Black clubs liked 80 beat per minute music, and then somewhere in between was everyone else. So it's interesting. And, certain clubs like Four on the Floor, really sort of predictable disco. Others wanted more funk.
So how important to you was the Paradise Garage in a variable of a record that was played there, opposed to the microcosm New York City in that room?
Well, probably the most important, because it had more influence, but than any other club for me. I mean, it was, first of all, it was huge. It was gay black club, so a gay club is not a gay black club, and a gay white club played totally different music.
Totally.
And, there were white people. Bobby Shaw would always be in the booth.
Yes.
And we would just sit there, watch Larry Levan play, and wondering what he's going to play next. And he would play records from South Shore Commission, Free Man, or something like that. Records that most people didn't know about. Records that came from pre-'78 that I used to collect before I started Dance Music Report. The ones I always begged Joey Carvello to spin instead of the hits he usually spins, because he's always likes to get a cheap, fat, full dance floor.
Here we go like this to you. Come on!
No, come on. Play something a little bit more interesting and obscure.
Come on!
Play the Philly Devotions. Do something different.
Yes. And of course, I know Will Milton wrote Danceteria, played another big role, because again, in New York, that's for you as a record label guy. You must be running around now with these promos and breaking records. And right away, as we all know, a DJ starts to play a record, instant gratification, yes or no, that you have something that's going to work.
Certain places could tell you that. It depended on their crowd. It wasn't even always true at Paradise Garage. You all heard the story about Tana Gardner when he played Heartbeat. He played it 3 times in a row. Nobody would dance. He didn't care. People were lying on the dance floor, and he kept playing it until people started to dance. He broke the record. The other thing was that Frankie Crocker from BLS would come to the garage and listen and find out about music there and put it right on the radio, because he could see it exposed. And he realized he had to be in touch with what was happening on the street. And seeing a reaction in a club to a record that had never been played before, or maybe only been played once or twice before, and see it pack the dance floor, it's such an exhilarating feeling. It's really why I got in the music business. You put a record out, and to see something explode, in 30, 60 seconds, wow, just amazing.
How important was Frankie Crocker's show in New York, with you having music coming out on your label, to getting it played?
Oh, really important. He must have raked in hundreds of thousands in payola a year, definitely. It was great. I heard all kinds of stories about, people entertaining him. In fact, one of the great stories is Mel, the guy. There were 2 owners of West End Records, and West End was arguably one of the first disco labels, dance music labels, because he also was an owner of Paradise Garage, and Frankie Crocker would call and say, "Mel, I feel like some fried chicken. Could you bring me some fried chicken?" The owner of the label would go get him fried chicken and bring it to him in the radio station. Another story, Frankie Crocker goes to meet him. We're at the 3-star Michelin restaurant in St. Paul de Vence, Le Moulin du Mougin. Frankie Crocker's going with the guys from Sleeping Bag Records.
Will Sokoloff?
Oh, Will Sokoloff was there, and his partner at the time. And Frankie Crocker, it's already going to be, in those days, still going to be $300 a person for dinner.
Right.
But they let Frankie Crocker order the wine. And when it was done, he ordered a second bottle, $5,000 a bottle. This is when $5,000 is $25,000 today. So that tells you that's Frankie Crocker.
Oh, that's Frankie Crocker.
I hope they got a lot of records played after that. That's all I can say.
Yeah, $25,000. Holy smoke. I think I would have had a conniption. Can you imagine doing that now? Because we talk about Meet 'em, how expensive the drinks used to be when you would all buy that's crazy.
Yep. But no, Frankie Crocker though would do the same thing as Larry Levan. He'd play like a Calypso record by Mighty Sparrow, and he'd play it twice in a row. He played it all the way to the end, and then he played it again because he thought it was so important, that people hear. And he'd break records like nobody breaks records, I think.
I wish it was like that now.
Well, that's right. So what you're asking for is Paola to come back, because actually Paola made it possible, for West End to get records played and Tommy Boy for that matter, that we wouldn't have gotten.
Salso too, for that matter. All the labels, Roulette, Prelude. Look how many hit records Marvin Schlacht and them had.
Yep.
Well, everyone, we're gonna have to call it because Tom has to go. I was already warned. He's got to roll.
Yeah, let me just see. I'm gonna just look at the comments.
I want to cry because Tom Silverman is a plethora of info, and people are probably shocked to hear all this wonderful.
I know it's way too much to fit into 1 hour, but I think going over an hour is asking too much of people, especially my 92-year-old mom. Considering she lent me $5,000 twice and paid for college and graduate school, which I didn't end up using. I got to go take her to dinner tonight.
He should have been a doctor by this point. Jackie, everyone's thanking you, Tom. You please come back again. And
I think we're just, Mel Sharon. Yeah, I mean, there's so many things to talk about. There's so many stories. We haven't even scratched the surface. The New Music Seminar, Dance Music Report, and Tommy Boy. There's a lot to talk about. A lot of fun things and weanings. Things you wouldn't expect that successes and failures breed. You can learn from success, but you can learn more from failure. And you can learn also from the failure of others.
Can I just ask one major question before you go? What was the most successful record on Tommy Boy for you?
Well, fiscally successful was definitely Coolio, Gangsta's Paradise, who just passed. I was just at his funeral a few weeks ago. It's been a tough year. Shock G died this year too. It's been a tough year.
G, right?
Shock G.
Shock G. I'm sorry, Shock G. Yeah. Holy smoke! Thank you, everyone, for tuning.
But lots more to talk about. Lots of stories. Lots of things to say. And do you archive this show, Lenny?
Yes, we have it. As everybody knows, it goes up on YouTube tomorrow. Podcast on Apple Music, iHeartRadio, and all. You'll have it all. And you got to come back, Tom, again for the part 2, and give us more than an hour, please.
Let's ask everybody who's listening now to ask what they want me to talk about. And
Jeez, Tom,
I don't care how controversial. I'll do a whole thing on Paola if you want. I don't care. It doesn't.
We want everything. They want everything from you because you're like, you're like a college professor here. You're telling us.
I mean, it depends. The people who are listening should be the ones who get to choose what we talk about.
Oh, right? I'm going to ask them. I'm going to say, you heard it when we put this up again, and I introduce Tom again for another story again. Please put forward all the questions or topics that you want to hear. That's most important to you all because we need him to tell us. Payola is a big thing. People don't realize how important that was. That brown bag was huge.
Because radio programmers are like Pavlovian. They want to play records that sound like what they're already playing. Kind of like what algorithms are doing in Spotify and other places now. They recreate the past and prevent innovation from happening. So if you have a freak record like Planet Rock was, radio would reject it because it didn't sound like anything that they've ever played. But when they played it, it would light up, the phones, and then they realized they had to play it, and it would spread from station to station. In what do we call that now? We call that virality. But that's what everyone talks about, going viral. Records went viral before there was an internet, before there were cell phones. Records would go viral, and they went viral all the way back to Tommy James and the Shondells. If you read that book about Morris Levy and Tommy James and how Hanky Panky broke back in 1965 at a sock hop, which is a DJ session in Pittsburgh. Somebody played it and all the kids went crazy and started dancing to it. So it happened to be a radio guy was there and he put it on the radio in Pittsburgh and it blew up on the radio, and that's what happens. And the artist wasn't signed at the time. It's an interesting story. Anyway, plenty to talk about.
We will get you back, Tom. I promise. And you know how hard it is to get Tom on, right? And he agreed. His dates, I got to put this in far in advance. So I will make sure when I announce, get all your questions together, and I'll send it to Tom, and Tom will be ready to take it from the part of payola forward.
Well, and we have to go back and forth too, because we skipped over a few things. YouTube, make sure you put it in the notes there, asking people to
I will
in their comments, ask what they'd like to hear about.
Okay. On that note, everyone, have a great evening around the world, a great day, and thanks you, Tom Silverman. We love you.
Thank you.
And see you all next week.
Thank you.